Hi guys, this is Sandra of the Alexandrite system. So today I want to talk about something that tends to be a problem that only hosts in the system face. And even though I no longer see myself as a host, or at least I don't use that term, this is an issue that I was facing a lot early on. And that problem is trusting others to front. So first let's talk about why someone might experience this problem. As hosts, oftentimes our job is to not know about the system. Oftentimes the host is the last alter to find out about the system. And that does serve a purpose. It lets us go on with our daily life without memories of trauma. But then once you discover the system, it can be this issue of you don't know any of these people. And honestly, it starts to feel like they've invaded your life. Because these new people, and you might not even see them as people yet, but they want to take time away from you. And especially if you experience like heavy amnesia, that means that's time you don't get. Say you have off on a Friday. You wake up on Friday and someone immediately switches in, and then all of a sudden you're waking up on Saturday. You've just lost your day off. And that is scary. I'm not going to deny it. But you do have to remember that this is their body too. You may spend the most time in it, but that doesn't make it just yours. It's not an easy thing to give up control, especially to people that you barely know. So my first piece of advice is get to know the other people in your system, like genuinely get to know them. You might know broad strokes about them. You might see them as like basically one emotion. For example, I basically just saw Claudia as like the angry one for the longest time. But once you get to know them, you'll find that they're people. They're fleshed out people. They have their own wants and needs. And eventually, if you get to know them, you might get along with them. You might even like them. So just trying to sit down and talk with them is going to be a really good tool in your toolkit here. So say you've gotten a little further along here. Say that you've gotten to trust a couple of alters to front, but not everyone, and maybe not some people specifically, because you don't trust what they might do. I think it's important to remember that no one in the system is acting with bad intent most of the time. Everyone is just trying to protect the body in their own way. And I think it can be helpful to just, again, talk to these alters and let them know what you are afraid of. But I think it's important to know that oftentimes people can surprise you. Before I get into an example, I'm just going to give a quick trigger warning for suicidal ideation and car accidents. Skip to this time if you want to avoid it. If you are a longtime viewer of this channel, and especially if you are a longtime follower of our Twitter, you would know that I have not trusted Glow in the past at all. My main reason was that Glow was incredibly suicidal. And in the past, Glow has been particularly fixated on the idea of car crashes. And so as a result, I could not trust Glow to drive. And in general, I don't care who drives our car. Like, we let Susan drive all the time. She's actually maybe the best driver among us. For the record, Ellen is the worst driver. Sorry. So I set a boundary with Glow. I said, you can't drive because I don't trust you to drive. And she reluctantly agreed to it. And we found a workaround where if she wanted to go to therapy, one of us would drive her there, she would switch in for therapy, switch out after, and then one of us would drive home. And Glow was not happy about this. She described it as prisoner transport. But Glow still understood this boundary and respected it. When we spent some time with the Ring System in February, Glow and Lily had a little bit of a hangout, and so they were going to go from one place to another, and it was too far to walk easily. And Glow switched out and let me drive there, and then I let her switch back in. And just the respecting of that boundary was a little bit of a turning point for us. And I think I'm going to wrap this up with a kind of difficult truth here for some hosts. You're going to switch. You just are. It's what your brain has programmed itself to do. Unless you're like an OSDD1 system that just doesn't switch, it's gonna happen. I'm sorry. And you may not be able to control switching all the time, or at all. And so it's important to get to know the other people in your system and get to trust them as people so that you can trust them to front and feel comfortable and, most importantly, safe. So I encourage you to have these hard conversations and do some introspection on what makes you uncomfortable about this. And just know that eventually it'll get easier. And who knows, maybe at some points you might enjoy taking that break. I know I do. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you next time. Bye.